Hey friends, welcome back to She's At It Again. My name's Tanya, and today I want to show you the beginnings of a recipe called chicken and noodles. Now I know that kind of sounds like, well, everybody makes chicken and noodles, but this is something that back when I went through cancer treatment, about 23 years ago, close to it, a friend from church brought this dish over, and I looked at it, and I wasn't to the point to where I couldn't eat yet, which that lasted for months. But all that being said, a friend of mine named Debbie Loney brought over what was called chicken and noodles, and I just thought, oh well, it's probably some kind of, I don't know, flavored something. I don't know. I don't really know what I was expecting, but I didn't expect it to be that good. It was so good. But now years ago, that was made with probably cream of something soups and all those ingredients, but this is not. Now remember, we're cooking better to eat better, and we're going to make better choices. So we're going to make our ingredients from scratch. It doesn't require that many ingredients, and I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. This is one of those meals where you eat it until you just almost can't eat anymore. Zoe, what are you doing over there, girl? My dogs went to the groomer this morning. They look so sharp. I was going to show you what Zoe looked like, and then she moved over to the other side of the room. So maybe I'll get a shot of them later. They look so cute in their little haircut. But anyway, this dish called chicken and noodles is creamy, and you can use store-bought noodles. That's fine. I may have some in the cabinet I made before. I may make some more. I don't know. Anyway, but we're going to put this chicken to cook. Now I'm going to put it in a slow cooker. I bought a whole chicken this morning at the supermarket, and I'm going to put that in a slow cooker and let it cook low and slow for several hours. So this is going to be easy. This first step, you're going to go, is that all there is to it? But that's not all there is to it, but that's the first step. So I want to show you that initial process. So hang tight and we'll get started in just a minute. All right, so we have our insert for our slow cooker right here. I'll just set that aside. And this is our chicken. And this thing weighs almost 7 pounds. It's huge. It's just huge. So I'm going to put it down in the sink to cut the packaging off of it. This is about my least favorite part. We're going to keep everything intact, including everything on the inside. And not only are we going to use this to make chicken and noodles, but also once we debone it, which will be tomorrow, then, or maybe either later on tonight. I don't know. It depends on how fast it cooks. We will take the bones then and make more bone broth, because can you really ever have too much bone broth, except for the fact that if you keep it in your refrigerator, in your spare refrigerator, you might run out of room. And I probably have, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 quarts left in there, but I use it quite a bit. All right. Okay, I'm glad I looked in there. I was just going to leave that in there. A lot of times they wrap the neck and gizzard and livers and stuff in a paper bag, but this time it's not a paper bag, and I would not have wanted to cook that plastic bag in that crock pot with the chicken. Just absolutely no. So I'm just going to dump that back down in there. Ugh, that is not my favorite smell either. All right, so we're only going to put one other ingredient in this for right now, and it is a stick of butter. Do not use margarine with this. Use real butter, and we're just going to unwrap it. Lay it right on top. Don't add any water to your slow cooker. You don't need any. We're going to put that butter right there on top. And we're going to put it in the slow cooker itself. Put a lid on it. And I'm going to take this out to the sunroom, plug it in, and this is going to cook for probably about I would say at least 6 to 8 hours. Now, if you wanted to cook it on low and cook it for 12 hours, that would be just fine. Right now, it's 2:44, and I'm not getting up at 2:44 in the morning to undo this. So what I may do is just cook it low and slow until I get ready to go to bed later on tonight, and then turn it on warm, keep it warm until tomorrow morning, and then I can debone it then. I'm not a middle of the night deboner, so we're just gonna do that in the morning. So anyway, first step to this, so you're just gonna have a whole chicken. You can rinse it off if you want to. I don't rinse mine off just because I figure the heat's gonna kill all the germs in there, and put 1 stick of butter on there. So I'm telling you guys, this is good, and I can't wait for somebody out there to try it and then write in the comments what you thought about it, because this is one of my favorites. I normally just serve this with a can of that jellied cranberry sauce, the organic kind, but still a lot of sugar, but it's so, so good. So anyway, we're gonna get this started. Okay, so this has been in the slow cooker for several hours. I just now turn it down on warm, but as you can see, it just has, lots of steam, but it just has all the juices and stuff from the chicken, so no extra water. But right now it is about that time, about 7:20. So this has been in the slow cooker for several hours, but like I said, I'm gonna turn down on warm, keep it in there overnight, and then I'll address that tomorrow where it's easy enough to handle. Okay, we are back. This is the next Okay, we're back. This is the next morning, and I'm not gonna hit those bowls anymore. So I have my whole chicken with everything included that's been cooking low and slow. It was cooking on high for maybe 3 or 4 hours, and then I turned it down on just warm. It stayed on warm all night long. That was out in the sunroom, so I turned it off when I first got up this morning. It's been cooling off a little bit, so this is cool enough for me to handle. It's not cold, and it's not just room temperature, but it's not so hot that I'm constantly burning my hands, which is normally what I do when I try to debone a chicken because I'm in a big hurry. So I have this bowl to put all the bones back in. I have the larger bowl for right now to put all the meat in that I'm going to debone off this. Now the liquid is from this chicken, so which would be the grease from the chicken plus the whole stick of butter that we put in there. That's going to be going into this bowl too. So this is going to have other ingredients added to it. That's why I'm putting it in a bigger bowl. So for right now, I'm just going to start deboning this chicken, and I'm not going to film the whole thing. I'm just taking for granted that you know how to debone a chicken. If not, somebody holla, because I can show you how to debone a chicken. But I'm just going to get started here. I just want to clarify what bowls I have out, just kind of make it easier for you if you decide to do this process. I don't want it to be any more confusing than what it has to be. So the bones and the skin will go into the smaller bowl. Once this is all done, we will put those items back into the slow cooker, add good water to, I was putting my piece of chicken in there. I do that all the time. That's what happens when I talk and have more than one bowl to deal with. Actually, it could be just one bowl and it'd be the same effect, but anyway, as I was saying, we will put our bones back into the slow cooker and start making bone broth. Now, as I've said before on one of my other videos on how to make bone broth, we add a little bit of cider vinegar to it, a little bit of salt if you want your bone broth salted, and then we just slow cook it all night long. And we'll do this 2 or 3 times, and each batch of bone broth will be a little less strong, a little less flavorful than the other batch. But those are the batches the ones that are less flavorful, the ones that are like number 2 and number 3 batch, those are the ones we'll use to make things like baked rice and just season it, because it doesn't call for that strong chicken flavor. It just calls for some flavor. It's certainly more flavorful than water, and it's better than anything that's store-bought in a jar or in a can that you can buy. So by the end of the whole process, the chicken bones will be crumbly like chalk almost. So this is what we're looking at putting in the bowl for bone broth. So it's got a little bit of meat left on there, not just a whole lot, and eventually those will come off in the bone broth. But that's what we're left with, good quality bone broth. So if you buy an organic chicken and you pay $15 for it, don't freak out, because you're going to use that for so many things. Not only the meat that's on it, but you'll be using the bones. And if you have pets, either cats or dogs, you can take those bones at the end of the process, puree them up in a high-speed mixer, and add it to their food, and it just adds calcium and minerals and just all kinds of good things for your dog or your cat. I would not recommend putting whole bones in there, even though they're soft enough to where you could just really crush them up like chalk, like wet chalk. But I would still puree them. You can put them in ice cube trays and then divide it up into servings like that. Okay, so I'm going to turn the camera off for now. I think you kind of get the gist of deboning this chicken, but when we come back, I'll be ready to make the other ingredients to add to the meat and all the juice, and then we will continue on with our chicken and noodles. So now with greasy hands, got to figure out how to turn the cameras off. Okay, we'll be back in just a bit. Okay, friends, I just wanted to come back real quick and show you, this is how much bones from the carcass that I had. It's got a little bit of meat left on there, like little pieces like that, but I mean, they're just so minuscule. But so this is our bowl of chicken meat that I got off. That was a big old fluffy chicken, but this is how much meat we got off there. But then you have what's left in here. Now this is our butter and our chicken fat from there. So what I want to show you is how I get this back into the bowl with the meat without getting all the other things in there, because there's probably little tiny bones and stuff from the neck bone and stuff. Those are really small bones. So I'll pour it through just a wire mesh strainer like that. Now it doesn't matter if everything comes out of the slow cooker, because remember, we're going to be putting the bones and stuff back in there, cooking it again for bone broth. So just take your strainer like that, and you've got all those little pieces left in there, but I want all that butter and that liquid from the chicken cooking to go back in my chicken. So basically that's what you have, is a little blob of stuff. Plop that back into the slow cooker. We're going to put our bones back in here like this. We'll fill it with water from the Berkey. So you want, I mean, if tap water is all you have, then by all means use tap water. But I like my filtered water from my Berkey water filter, and make bone broth out of that. So anyway, going to fill this up, get it to start cooking. We're going to let this cool down completely, put it in the fridge, and then we'll use that once we get all our other ingredients made and make our chicken and noodles. So just wanted to show you that process real quick. Okay guys, we're back for just a little bit of interim here. So I have, this is our noodles that we're going to make. Now the original recipe for this calls for Ream's frozen noodles. You can find those in the frozen section of your local supermarket. The only problem is, upon looking closely at the ingredients of those, I believe they are still made with bleached flour. There was some ingredient or something in there that just made me stop buying them from the store and start making my own. So what we're doing right now is making our own. If you want to go ahead and use those, that's totally up to you. Just know you've been warned, and it's not going to affect the taste. It's just that the bleaching process of flour is considered carcinogenic, which means it causes cancer. And I know there's some in the audience going, everything causes cancer. Well, you say that until you've had cancer, and then you think twice about anything you put in your mouth that may potentially cause it. So it is probably the least amount of fun I've ever been through, and to this day I can still describe it to you what it was like. So all that being said, let's continue with this. But the Ream's frozen noodles, again, are in the frozen food section. You're going to need a 1 pound package of those. If you're using dry pasta, you're still going to need a pound of pasta. It's a lot. So, all right, I have 3 cups of plain flour in here. This is organic unbleached flour. And to that, we're going to add just a teaspoon of salt, just for a little bit of flavor. And then I have a cup of water heating up on the stove top. Let's see if it's a little bit warm. Yeah, this is just a little bit warmer than what my skin temperature is. It's not boiling by any stretch of the imagination. It's cool enough for me to put my hand on the bottom of it, but you can tell the water's warm. Just going to add this directly to the flour. There's my cute little saucepan again. And we're going to use 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And this is so easy to mix up if you have a stand mixer. If not, it's really not that difficult to mix up by hand. Just a smidge more. But a stand mixer makes it a really, really easy job. And this is just organic olive oil, as you can see by the label. Get all of this out of there. And use our dough hook on our mixer. Now don't worry, it's still morning right now. It's only about 10:40 right now, and we won't make this up. Now, I don't necessarily know that we're going to have this for dinner tonight. We probably won't. I'll probably make the whole dish tonight, and then we'll sit it in the refrigerator and then heat it up for later. But right now, we're going to mix up our pasta, even though we're not going to necessarily cut it up and use it until later on, because as you've heard me say on several of the videos, if you've tuned in before, you need to let that dough relax before you start cutting it up. And we want to be sure and let that dough relax, make it a lot easier to work with. Otherwise, you roll it out and then it just starts coming back together. It's not relaxed enough, but if you let the ingredients sit for a while, it just relaxes and it rolls out beautifully. So no problem there. So 3 cups of flour, 1 cup of warm water. You don't have to use warm water, but I find that it just mixes a little better. 2 tablespoons of oil and a teaspoon of salt. We're going to turn this mixer on and let it go. And we're not going to mix this up, just keep mixing and mixing for any purpose necessarily. I'm just going to mix it up where it's all moist, and then we're going to take it out. But I don't want it flying out of the bowl. And here's my handy dandy hotel shower cap. I put these over the bowl. Once I get this all mixed up, I'm just going to put this over the bowl to keep the condensation in. I don't want it drying out because I have a ceiling fan on, and you know how that goes. It gets kind of crusty around the edge if you don't keep it covered up. But I'll keep that covered up, and then when we're ready to roll it out, it'll be nice and relaxed. We'll use a little bit of flour on our countertop. Roll it out as big or as small as you want. I think the Reams frozen noodle, from best I remember, they're about maybe a ½ inch wide and maybe 1.5 inches long. I could be totally off base about that. I don't know. But if you want to make them bigger like dumplings, that's fine. And if you want to make them smaller, by all means, go right ahead. Not going to affect the taste of it at all. Okay, I'm just looking for the dough blob itself in there to start cleaning off the edge of the bowl around the sides. And I think we're pretty much done. That didn't take long. Let's get it all off our dough hook. I probably need to unplug this before I start messing with that. I've never had the mixer come back on when I've been messing with it, but it would probably cause me a little coronary arrest there if it ever did. Get all that excess dough off the side. And this is what our dough looks like. Real stretchy, but not near as relaxed as it's going to be once it sits for a while. Okay, take our dough hook off, cover this up with a shower cap, and we're going to let it rest for a while. We'll come back and cut those up after a while and finish up our chicken and noodles. All right, this is the next day. I put that chicken that I cooked and deboned into the refrigerator in the garage, put a cover over it. That shower cap and it's been chilling. So I just set it out so it'll kind of come to room temperature. In this pan right here, I'm just reducing some chicken stock. And the reason I'm doing that is because my bone broth is just kind of regular strength, but I wanted it that super strength because the original recipe calls for adding bouillon cubes. I'm not a fan of bouillon cubes. It's salt and some monosodium glutamate and some chicken flavor. I don't even ask me where that comes from. But I don't use bouillon in anything. I don't use that artificial seasoning. So I've taken my chicken stock, bone broth, and I put about a cup and a quarter in here, and I've reduced it down. So that, I've got the burner off now. So what we're going to start with in this burner on the front is our mixture to put in our chicken for our chicken and noodles. Now we'll make this, then we'll set it aside, then we'll go make our noodles for it. So it's kind of a long drawn out process, but I promise you it is worth it. I know it seems like a lot of steps. Basic ingredients, seems like a lot of steps, a lot of time, but it is so worth it. Now, if you like chicken and dumplings, this is the flavor of chicken and dumplings, but in just a simpler form, I'd say. All right, so in our just regular saucepan here, my one with the little wiggly handle, there goes the clock, of course. We're gonna put about 6 tablespoons of olive oil in this. This is my extra virgin olive oil. And I'm just eyeballing that, as you can tell. And I am going to go ahead and measure out my cup of milk. We're going to need that for later on, but I want to put the milk back in the fridge. I don't like for it to sit out. All right, so our oil is going to heat up a bit, and we're going to put our mushrooms in there. I have chopped up 3 just regular size organic mushrooms right there. And I don't wash them. I think I've said this in a prior video. I don't wash them anymore. I just take a knife or, fingernail or something, kind of scrape the dirt off. I just don't like the moisture in the mushrooms. It's just like a sponge. It just soaks it up too much. Okay, let this heat up. I'm gonna let that heat up a little bit more. I know we're gonna need salt. Okay, so while we're waiting on this, I'm going to tell you this funny story. This is, when we first moved back to Arkansas, I was closer to family, of course. Here, I'll peek at you up there. Can I see you right there? Closer to family. We lived in Oklahoma. We moved back here when my daughter was very young. And so my cousin's wife decided she wanted to come and spend the night here. We thought that would be fun. She's real fun to be around. She's just a lot of laughs. We have a really good time together. And so she had 3 kids at home, and my cousin said he would take care of them, and he farms. So, I mean, I don't even want to know how that goes. So anyway, she comes here to our house to visit for a night. Well, I decided to fix this chicken and noodles for dinner, and we sat down at the table, and she is just, whatever she thinks, that's exactly what she says. And I think that's why we get along so well. She's just so funny. And we sat down at the table, and I had the chicken and noodles in a casserole dish, I believe, with a lid on it. So we prayed, and I took the lid off of this dish, and she kind of puts her head back like she's holding onto her chair. She goes, "What is that, slop?" So I guess anybody else would have gone, "Well, it's too bad you can't spend the night tonight. See you later," and send her out the door. But it was, considering who it was just funny. We laughed and laughed and laughed. She goes, "I'm sure it tastes good, but I'm telling you, this just looks like slop." And I said, I I agree. It does look like slop, but I'm here to tell you it's good. Well, take that story and move forward a few months. She calls me and says, I want you to know I came home and I made that dish and we cannot get enough of it. I've made it for family members. They all want the recipe. I've made it for this, that, and something else. They all want the recipe. So anyway, she was a big fan of it. But to look at it, she just immediately said, what is that, slop? I mean, I would not recommend saying that to anybody who invites you over for dinner, but for her, it was just funny. So she knows who she is, and if she's watching this video, I'm sure she's probably going, oh, Lance, I hope she doesn't mention my name. But I do love her. I didn't even punch her. I think that was the only thing I made that weekend that she thought looked like slop, hopefully, or just that one night she was here. Okay, got our mushrooms in there. Our oil finally heated up. We're going to put about a half teaspoon of salt in this. Now, if you have salted chicken broth, you can always add more salt later. I know I've said this before. You can add more salt, but you can't take it out once it's in there. So just consider that. So I guess what I'm saying is add less if you need to. Well, shoot, that's one of my favorite shirts, and I just got a drop of oil on it. Ah! And I didn't put on an apron because I thought, oh, this is just going to take, not going to take that long, and I'm not going to make a mess. Well, that's what you get for thinking that, huh? All right, to this, we are going to add about 6 tablespoons of flour. I'm going to go ahead and just get out a measuring spoon. I don't normally, but I'll get one out this time, just so we can visually see 6 tablespoons. I'm going to give this a stir, and as you can tell, if you've watched any of my other vlogs, this is making a roux. It's spelled R-O-U-X, and it's basically like gravy. Just the beginnings of gravy. So we're going to cook this so the flour does not have a raw flour taste. I'm going to brown it just a bit. To that, we are going to add about 4 tablespoons of cream cheese. And if you add a little bit more, that is not going to be a deal breaker in this dish. And if you don't quite have that much, then that's not going to be a deal breaker either. It just adds a really, really good flavor to it. Something about the cream cheese in these. Basically what we're doing here is making cream of mushroom and cream of chicken soup, but not using the canned type, because that's not a wise choice in trying to eat better. So we're making a homemade version. Going to stir that around where our cream cheese melts. Now it's going to melt a lot better once you put your liquids in there, but for now, I'm just kind of breaking it up. Okay, I'm going to put my reduced chicken stock in there. That smooths out quite a bit when you add the liquid to it. It doesn't look so lumpy, so don't be scared if it doesn't smooth out at first. Now we're going to put our 1 cup of whole milk in there. I'll turn my heat down just a little bit. And that turns into a really, really nice, smooth mushroom gravy. The more you stir it, the smoother it gets. And it'll thicken up just a tad too. So you're looking at all that just shredded whole chicken and the broth that goes with it and the stick of butter. It's going to be added to this. And then our noodles once they're cooked. And that's pretty much it. And as simple as the ingredients sound, like I said, I know it sounds ridiculous that I just keep repeating this. The ingredients sound so simple, yet they are so good. It's kind of like biscuits and gravy. You think flour, butter, buttermilk. I mean, how good can that be? Well, do you know what a biscuit tastes like? And you know what I'm talking about when I say that. And then gravy, I mean, good grief. You've got butter and flour and milk, basically. And how good could that be? Well, if you've tasted gravy, you know how good that can be. And then you put them together and they're just synergistic. It's just so good together. But these just few ingredients together are just so perfect. All right, once this gets to a smooth consistency, you are welcome to take it off the burner, or you could cook it until it boils and you're satisfied with the fact that it's come to a boil, and then turn it off. For now, I have a doggie wanting to go out in the sunroom, so I have to let her out, back out there. All right, I'm going to turn the camera off now because other than just a few little lumpy dumpies in there, that's pretty smooth. And it's gotten to the point to where it's fine. It's thick enough because we'll heat this all up again. Once we heat kind of the casserole up. Now, you don't have to serve this as a casserole. If your chicken and your broth is hot, this is hot, you add it to the hot noodles, you stir it together, it's ready to eat. But for me, it's still just middle of the morning here. And so I will make this and put it in a casserole dish, and we will heat it up like a casserole and serve it from the oven. So this is all going to get heated up again. But if you're satisfied with yours being smooth enough and thick enough, then by all means take it off the burner, add it to the rest of it, and serve it up. I love cooking in the mornings more than I love cooking in the evenings, because in the evenings I have that time that I have to finish. It's almost like, you know, you have 3 hours ready to go. Well, if I do it in the morning, I can take as long as I need to. I can let things cool, go run an errand, come back, just kind of take my time. Knowing the afternoon is just so much more relaxing, knowing that, hey, I have dinner already ready. All I have to do is just heat it up or make a salad for it, and that doesn't take long. Set the table, just get a little bit of stuff ready. I don't have to worry about, what if I drop that, or what if I don't have this ingredient or that ingredient and I have to run to the store at the last minute, because goodness knows I have experience with that. Whew, that's pathetic. Okay, I'm going to turn this burner off. I'm just going to let that sit there on that hot burner and just cool off real slowly. And for right now, we're going to get our stuff ready to make our noodles. I've got my dough in a bag in the refrigerator. I'll get that out. This is my pot that has just some Himalayan pink salt. You can see the little pink spots down in there. Here, I'll scoot it this way so you can see. It looks like my pan has freckles, but that's the little rocks of Himalayan pink salt. We're going to heat this up so the noodles will be ready to put in there as soon as we get those made. So I'll turn everything off. I'll get the dough ready. I'll move the cameras over there to the island, and we'll go make some noodles now. I knew the clock was going to ding as soon as I turned the camera on. That's what happens. All right, we have our dough in the refrigerator. Now remember yesterday when I made this, I said something about, you know, the longer you keep it in the bag and before you use it, it'll relax and all that. Well, this is going to be really relaxed. I'm going to take my rings off so I don't get dough stuck in there. This is super stretchy. You know it's good when it stretches and it doesn't make a hole in it. Just stays together, so that's nice. Let's see, I'll go with this one. I have two rolling pins. I have a wooden rolling pin and I have this marble rolling pin, and this is the first one I ever used when I was first married. I think my Nana bought this for me, and if other people picked it up, they'd probably go, "Good grief, that's like rolling a rock around." Yeah, it is, it's marble, but it just kind of feels natural to me. But when I pick up the wooden one now, I'm like, man, this is light as a feather. So it just all depends on what you're used to. Okay, don't worry about having too much flour necessarily on the countertop, because it's noodles and you're going to be cooking them, and it doesn't matter. It keeps them from sticking together too. All right, I don't really know how to explain how thick or thin to roll this out, other than if you roll it out thick, it's going to be like a dumpling. If you roll it out thin, it's going to be like a noodle. So I would say, let me roll this out and I'll get a gauge kind of how thick it is. I like to explain things in terms where most people will know what they are. So let's kind of rake that flour out of the way for now. Once you get it coated on there and you know it's not going to stick to the countertop, it's okay to get that flour raked away. And this flour is easy to work with, or I'm sorry, this dough is easy to work with. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in a square. We're just going to cut out some square-ish shapes. And this, again, makes a pound of pasta. And, of course, we'll have the recipe in the description. But I think I made a video on this already anyway. It's the egg-free pasta. Now, you can make egg pasta. If you'd rather have egg pasta, that's totally fine. But this is just egg-free pasta. I'm going to flip this over. This seems like it has more flour on that side. All right. I would say that feels like the thickness of leather on a baseball glove. Now, if that doesn't ring a bell with you, I would say it is about the thickness of a shoelace. And again, the size of these doesn't really matter either. As you can see, I'm just randomly rolling this down. Some of them are going to be small, some of them are going to be large. Now, if you buy those Reams frozen noodles in the frozen food section, it's going to be about like this. And as best I remember, and it's been a long, long time since I've bought any, but it seems like I remember them being maybe an inch or two long, but I could be totally off with that. I don't know. As I was just about to roll this dough out, I just gotten the bag of dough out of the refrigerator, and my phone rang, and it was my daughter, and she, like I said, she lives in a different country, and when it's my daughter, I answer it because I don't get to talk to her that much. But I kept thinking, well, I do need to roll this out. But in the meantime, my water heated up good, so that was a bonus right there. That was kind of a gift. So I can hear the pan kind of rumbling over there, and I turned the heat down lower. It was on a higher temperature, but I've turned it down so it's just at a simmer. Now, I will say, I'm going to give you a heads up, this dough is going to cook fast. This is not like regular pasta where you're going to leave it in there 10 or 12 minutes. This is going to cook for maybe a minute and it's done. So what I would recommend is that you have your strainer, whatever you're going to use, or your spider. This is a spider. Have this ready and have your pan of cooked chicken, which is right here for me. I took this out of the refrigerator. I'll go, this is my pan of cooked chicken, and it has the shower cap on it, but I'll put that over there next to the noodles so that I can spoon those into that as they cook. Now I'll just cook probably just a few at a time. Well, not a few, but not the whole thing at a time. But I'll cook some. I'll cook it in batches. I'll put it like that. I'll cook it in batches. And then I'll dish it out into that bowl. Then when I'm done, I'll drain the water from the big pan and then add everything, including our soup mixture, which is in this little pan right here. We'll add that to it, and that'll be everything combined. Then I'll kind of assess it and see which casserole dish I need to put it in. I may divide it up into 2 casserole dishes. I don't know. All right, let's get our bench scraper out of this drawer. And we are going to put these in the pan. And I'm just coating them with flour here so they just won't stick together. Some of these may just go ahead and stick together. You'll figure out a better way for you to do this probably than what I'm doing it. But if I were in a big hurry, I may figure out a better way, but because I'm a problem solver like that. But for now, this is okay. Actually, I'm going to get a bowl to put these in. And I can take them over there in that. Seems like they're sticking back together on the lines where I cut them. So I'm just touching them in that flour. Be ashamed to have to re-roll or recut everything. Okay, let's put one batch in there now, and then we'll come back and get the rest of them. Some of these are just going to be weird shaped. And that's okay. It's going to taste the same. When the noodles float to the top, that means they are done. So I'm just going to have to keep going back over there looking at them. Okay, this is what they look like in the bowl. I think I got all the dumplings off the countertop. Okay, our dumplings are well, I keep saying interchangeably dumplings and noodles. They're noodles. They are starting to float to the top, so that's a good thing. Okay, I'm moving this around because I want to bring this camera over here. I want you to see how these are starting to float to the top. Hopefully you can see that. I know I don't have the light on over here. Whew. I'll just turn the heat back up on this burner. Okay, I think you can see those coming to the top. See if I can get a picture of this. See them popping up to the top every once in a while. There we go. Normally these do cook very fast. It's just that I'd turned the burner down, so that was my own fault. All right, we got those out. Let's put more in. And if I put the lid on this, of course, the heat will stay in better and they will cook faster. But I can't very well video it if I have the lid on, so sorry, that's just how it's going to go. Smells really good. I think I'm seeing that everything is going to be able to fit in this one bowl, which I had my chicken, all the broth from that, the butter, in this large stainless bowl. And I've put part of the noodles back in here. I think the noodles and our soup mixture is all going to fit in this. So then I can just take and put the shower cap back over it, put it back in the fridge, and then when I'm ready to bake it off, I'll put it in a casserole dish, depending on how many people we have here for dinner. If it's just me and my husband, I'm just going to put a little bit in there. If there's several people over here, I'll dump the whole thing in a bigger casserole dish and bake it off. So, problem solved. I saw a couple of them trying to float to the top, so it looks like we're just about done. And I have my burner turned back up at this point. Okay, I have noodles floating to the top. Woohoo! All right, turn the burner off. We're going to dip these out. If you have someone helping you, especially a younger person, cutting out the noodles with the pizza roller would be a fun thing, but please do not let them drop these in the hot salted water without supervision, because that water will burn your hand when it jumps up. When you drop the noodles in there, it kind of makes a splash. And when that water comes up and hits your hand, it's hot. All right, at this point, we're going to empty out our soup mixture here. This is our mushroom soup mixture. I'm only turning it this way so you can see it on the camera, but I am right-handed, so this is kind of awkward. So I'm going to turn it back around and get it all out with a spatula. All right, turn this out, take it back over here. Here we go. All right, move the flour out of the way. And we're just going to stir this up. Guys, this smells so good. So the warmth from the noodles in there is kind of melting that butter that was in with the chicken. It smells so good. Now this would be ready to eat right now. As long as it's warm all the way through, it's ready to eat. But again, I'm going to cover mine up, put it back in the fridge, and we will have this later. And maybe I'll remember to take a picture of it when we get it on our plate. I don't know. And there's big, guys are gonna like this because this has big pieces of chicken in it. This isn't little shredded up chicken salad chicken. This is chunks of chicken. Okay. You can see why my relative called this slop. That's what it looks like. No apologies, because it smells and it's going to taste fabulous. Okay, I'll take a picture of this again when we serve it, but thanks for spending time with us. I hope you enjoyed this recipe. Don't let it wear you out. Don't be afraid of making the pasta or making the noodles and cooking the chicken and all this stuff. I know it's a long, drawn-out process, but I promise you, it is worth it. The flavor is just so good. It is true Southern comfort food. So we look forward to seeing you next time, sharing something else with you. Bye, guys. Okay, so we're back, and I'm fixing to take the chicken and noodles out of the oven. It's been in the slow cooker for a few hours, but I just popped it in the oven at the last minute. I needed to add a little bit of salt to it, so I'm fixing to take it out, and I guess it'll be here in just a minute. Of course, the clock is going to ding. I just want you to get a look at it and see how it looks. And I only put this on it because I didn't want it getting brown on the top. Ooh, it's nice and bubbly. All right. I think that's getting a good shot of it with the other camera. Look at all that butter floating around in there. This is so ridiculously good, guys. My husband walked in from work, and I didn't tell him who's coming over tonight. It's always a mystery for him. And he kind of walks around and looks, and he says, "What are we having? Chicken noodle soup?" And I said, "No, we're having chicken and noodles." And he said, "Oh, that's my favorite." Everything's his favorite. All right, I'm looking forward to this. Okay, hope you enjoyed that. Hope you got something out of it. And I know it looks like a long process, but I promise it's so good. You could replace this with chicken and dumplings for Thanksgiving. Just remember that. This is close enough to chicken and dumplings where people will be like, "Man, this is the best chicken and dumplings I've ever had." You don't have to worry about the dumplings disappearing in the broth, which I may or may not have had happen before. So it was weird. Every one of them just dissolved in the water, but I know what I did later on, so it's not a mystery anymore. So thanks for joining us. We look forward to sharing something again with you real soon. See ya.